I'm Rabbi J. Karzen.
And I'm Rabbanit Ruby Ray Karzen.
And Tape with Rabbi Doug is next.
We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug on your TV tonight. But Daddy, I want to watch Monday Night Football.
Forget about Monday Night Football. There's no other thing we're going to watch on Monday but Rabbi Doug.
Yeah, Rabbi Doug on TV tonight. We're going to see Rabbi Doug. Oh, everybody talk about Doug.
Shalom and welcome to Taped with Rabbi Doug. Glad you could be with us today. My guest today is my dear friend and the son of one of our most popular sets of guests, Rabbi Uri Karzen. Baruch haba, and it is a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, Doug. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome back to Chicago.
Thank you. I haven't been in Chicago in 30 some odd years.
30 some odd years. The last time I saw you was in Israel, and that was ages ago.
Right.
Uri is the son of Rabbi J. and Rebbitzin Ruby Ray Karzen. And Rabbi and Mrs. Karzen were recently on our show, and now Uri is here in Chicago, and it's really a pleasure to see you. Uri and I have been very close friends since we were very young, and I would say that Uri is one of the people that really drew me into synagogue life as a child, because I used to go and became friends with Uri in the synagogue as a very young boy, and started to not only go but look forward to going, because we would spend Shabbat together almost every week. Right. Playing. I would come to their house for Shabbat meals and things like that, and I'm talking about very young, considering and growing up together and spending time with them in Israel. As a matter of fact, the first year I lived in Israel, I spent time with Uri, and he was single at that time too. And since then, how many children and grandchildren do you have now? Tell our audience.
We have 5 children and 3 grandchildren. We just celebrated our first grandson's bris 2 days ago.
Very nice. Mazel tov, mazel tov. It's
very
very nice, which is the first great-grandson of Rabbi and Mrs. Karzen. And Uri also has smicha. He's also a rabbi. He is also into the real estate field and into Hebron reunification and rebeautification and expansion, and because he lives in the city of Hebron. Kiryat Arba Hebron is one big city connected with a few small communities, and Hebron is growing. And really, let me just go back to my days in Hebron with you, as in my 20s when we were young. When I came to Hebron, the Hadassah Hospital had squatters there. This was after, of course, Hebron had a number of massacres, and even while I was in Israel back in 1980, there was the night that I was supposed to stay with you. I don't know if you remember that. It was that night. I was supposed to come to you for Shabbat, and I missed the bus from Jerusalem, and that night there were terrorists who shot down at the people walking from Kiryat Arba to Hebron.
6 people were killed.
6 people killed. Another person with Chicago connections was injured. It was a terrible night, and if by some miracle I missed the bus, or we would have been among that group.
I also missed it, because otherwise we would have been there.
And I know that you also missed it for a different reason. You were having problems with your eyes, and it was a very windy night.
Contact lenses. But I would have.
We would have both gone if I was there.
I would have overcome the problem if I had a guest there, and you're supposed to be my guest. You didn't come, and it was God works in strange ways.
It's an amazing thing, and that was. You'll remind me, is that before the split of Hebron or right after the split of Hebron into 2 different areas?
That's much before.
It was before, right?
1980. Hebron was divided into 2 areas, H1 and H2, during the course of the 90s. I believe in the Oslo course, about 1993.
It's hard for me to remember. One of the things that I remember when I was back there in the 90s was driving through. My wife and I were driving through Hebron with you, and you had to stop because there was a stone throwing incident, and you were doing a patrol at the time of sorts, and you stopped because of a stone throwing incident when we were with you. But I remember in 1980 you taking me through all of the markets and all through Hebron, and then the terrorist thing happened. So what's it like now walking in the split Hebron, H1 and H2, walking on the split where the Jewish people live down to Hebron from Kiryat Arba. Is it quiet these days?
Let me just give a little background.
Sure.
Okay, Hebron was divided in 1993 between H1 and H2. The Arab section has 85% of Hebron. The Jewish section has 15% of Hebron. Within that 15%, the Jews are physically allowed to be in 3%. Okay, that gives us one street from the Tel Rumeida neighborhood until the cave of Machpelah. That's the whole thing. Now, recently, the Arabs have, with the help of, we call them anarchists, all kinds of leftist groups are coming. They're usually supported by the European Union. They come to Hebron and they're inciting the Arabs, saying that Israel is apartheid. Why apartheid? Because the Arabs aren't allowed to that 3% of the city. So we look back and we say, look, we're not allowed 97% of the city. You know, what are you complaining about? The big problems with us. At any rate, the Arabs are not allowed to be there because we suffered for several years of, like you mentioned, some amount of cocktails, stabbings, whatever. And so the government decided, with the help of the army, that this area is going to be just for Jews. As a result of that, it's quiet. It's quiet. You know,
now, let me do other memories that I haven't talked about. Sure. And that is, I mentioned Hadassah Hospital. What is that abandoned hospital which became squatted by Jews in the 80s, I guess, or in the late 70s or so on? And what is it like there now? It's an apartment complex or something?
It's an apartment complex. As a result of that Beit Hadassah attack that you and I both missed, Menachem Begin, who was the prime minister at the time, decided to officially renew the presence, the Jewish presence in Hebron. And the government authorized two building projects, one in the Beit Hadassah complex, and the other one was in the neighborhood of Avraham Avinu.
That was the next thing I was going to bring up. Right?
Oh, okay. So Beit Hadassah today has a complex of 5 buildings. There are 5 buildings living there. There are tens of families. I can't give you a number off the top of my head. There are tens of families there. There's also the kindergartners over there, and so on and so forth. Some public buildings. And that's the neighborhood I live, by the way. Currently I live in there. I live in a building called Beit Schneerson, which actually belongs to the Lubavitch.
Beit Schneerson was my next question.
Okay.
So I wanted to know about Beit Schneerson, the Lubavitch presence in Hebron, and the Lubavitch cemetery in Hebron, which has been defamed so many times. Is it right now being kept, holy and not defended? It's being
kept up. Yeah, we have a Shaliach Chabad in, a Chabad representative inside of the city. He's doing a fantastic job, and his name is Danny Cohen, Rabbi Danny Cohen, and he is responsible for keeping up the cemetery. And he brings in people, the ceremonies, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, the cemetery looks fine. So
the Beit Schneerson, that whole area is also built up and occupied.
Absolutely, yeah.
And people are living there. I mean,
sure.
Okay, beautiful residence. It's a residential area.
Right. Correct.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, next place is, you took me to the 1929 memorial in a basement, sort of, at the time.
At the Museum of Beit Hadassah. At the Museum of Beit Hadassah, in the bottom of Beit Hadassah, we have a museum.
Is that the same place you took me back in 1980?
Yeah. And you know something? We're trying to renovate. We're trying to raise money in order to renovate the place, to kind of bring it up to date. It's still there. It's still there. It still shows people, shows.
And that has to do with the 1929 massacre of how many Jews?
Not only. It shows, that's one room. That's probably the thing to remember, because it's a very graphic room.
Yeah.
But you go room after room, representing all the different, the history of Hebron throughout the ages, beginning from the time of Abraham, when he purchases Hebron. Purchased the cave of Machpelah.
Cave of Machpelah for 400 shekels of silver, which could be billions of dollars in today's money because of the special shekels of silver, according to the fortune. But which is really the claim to Jewish ownership in Hebron at the very beginning, that Avraham bought that. Not only did he bury Sarah himself, where we get the Jewish tradition to participate in a burial ourselves, just like Avraham did. I tell people that at funerals, they'd be like Abraham buried Sarah, so we bury our loved ones. It's considered to be a great act of kindness, of chesed, a great mitzvah. But Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah, all of those 3 patriarchs and matriarchs are buried in the cave of Machpelah. According to tradition, even Adam and Eve were buried there, and that place was bought by Avraham Avinu, and it's still in Jewish hands to a point, because the Arabs are there 5 times a day. Isn't that correct?
They're there 5 times a day. The Machpelah, the cave of Machpelah, is divided into 2. Again, the Arabs about 80% of the cave of Machpelah. We have 20%, and it's open from the early morning, from Vatican prayers until 9 o'clock at night, so on and so forth, and people daven. And there are kollels there, there are people learning there all day, and it's a very vibrant place in Jewish life right now.
So I've been waiting for someone like you to ask this question. I never asked this to David and Noah, who are here representing Hebron and been on our show a couple of times. How do Kohanim, now we're talking about the structures which are really over the cave.
Right.
Structures are over the cave. How do Kohanim, people who are of a priestly origin from Aaron, who aren't supposed to go to a cemetery or a graveyard or a place where there are dead bodies, how do Kohanim approach the cave of Machpelah, and do all of them except the heterim, the loopholes that allow them, some of them, to do that? How does that work? Can they only go certain places?
This is to get into a halachic discussion. I hope it's for the listeners.
Yes,
okay?
absolutely,
So
absolutely. Because it's people always ask this question to me, and I say I don't know the answer.
Okay, originally Kohanim didn't go into the Machpelah. Until about 15 years ago, it was accepted they should not go inside. Okay, why shouldn't they go inside?
Inside the buildings above
inside
it.
The building
We're not
itself,
going
right.
in the cave itself.
Exactly,
That's closed off.
Let's take 2 steps back in history. When Abraham purchases the Machpelah, he actually buys a cave inside an open field. Later on, 2,000 years later, comes Herod, Herod the king, and he builds a structure on top of the cave of Machpelah, and that's what we see today. And let me just mention...
And Herod's also the one who built Masada, for example, the structures on Masada.
He built the second temple.
The second temple?
The second temple he built, okay? And what's the most amazing thing is that, if we're going to touch on today, a little bit of real politics today, the Arabs have now approached the UNRWA, okay? The United Nations Relief and Works Association, in order to declare that the cave of Machpelah is a Palestinian heritage site. And that's really one of the most absurd claims you have there, because Herod built it as a synagogue. We're talking about 2,000 years ago. Nobody's using it. There weren't any Muslims around at the time.
Right.
Okay, Herod built a structure as a synagogue, and it's the longest existing synagogue in use today. Okay, the original use of the building was for synagogue. Today, it's still used as synagogue. Okay, how do Kohanim go inside? Okay, there's a halakha prohibition that you mentioned, that Kohanim aren't allowed to go into places where there are dead bodies or the impurities of
except
for
their own immediate relatives, which
except
are the
for the first
generation of relatives.
Right, exactly. Now, there's another halachic law that tzaddikim, righteous people, don't give off impurities. You're allowed to visit there. Now, the problem isn't, so we're not talking about...
Other people are buried there,
exactly,
we know that.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, I want to just say...
Yitzhak and Yaakov. That's the...
I want to say that when David Wilder was on our show, he told us how they actually went in the cave and there were bones everywhere inside the cave at that one time before it was reclosed off when they went and did this, that many people were buried in that cave besides the patriarchs at one time.
To reinter bones. The way these two people bury relatives a couple thousand years ago was they'd have a temporary grave, they'd bury the people until there'd be no more flesh left, and the bones would be reinterred into the family plots, the family graves, a common grave, all the bones together. There's even an expression in the Tanakh, in the Bible. It says "V'ne'asaf el amav," or el avotav. What's ne'asaf? To be gathered into their forefathers. What's gathering? Because their bones, we pick them up, put them in some kind of container, and bring them to the place of the burial of the previous generations. Bones were waiting for them. That was the idea. So in the cave of Machpelah, we don't have a problem with the Avram, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, Avram, Isaac, and Jacob, and the matriarchs. We have all these other people who are buried. They were probably less tzaddikim, the people who are buried there afterwards. Okay. Now there's another halachic law that states that if there's it's called a potech tefach, if there's a tefach of space, airspace, between the actual dead body, the corpse, and to the ceiling, that blocks the impurities from rising up. Okay? And so if there's a tefach, it's in case it doesn't go up. There's another way of doing it. Even if there's no airspace there, if you open up an opening from the side, the tumah can exit from a different side. Impurities can exit from a different side.
Ritual impurities.
Ritual impurities, correct. Then the Kohanim are allowed to walk over. Now we opened up in the side of the Machpelah, we opened up a hole. Okay, that lets the tumah out, lets the ritual out, and we also assume that there's because it's in a huge cave. The cave of Machpelah itself, when you're standing on this wall, on the floor is about 3 feet thick, and beneath that there's a whole space. So putting together those two factors, So then we allow Kohanim to come in today.
Very interesting. So that would mean to say that if there was a building built above a cemetery land, that the second floor of the building, because there'd be a separate roof to the first floor, the second floor of the building could technically be allowed for Kohanim to go upstairs and go to that second floor of the building.
Theoretically,
if they didn't, because it's,
but you should get
of course, that's a theoretic.
The person to give the
No, but that's a theoretic same idea.
Right.
That roof block, that area of space and
Absolutely.
the roof above blocks. So the foundation of the floor of the synagogue above the cave would be the roof to the cave, separating the ritual tuma, impurity,
Right.
allowing Kohanim to come in the building above.
Exactly.
Wow, that is amazing.
The impurity rise is called tuma ritzutza. It's called. When there's a continuity, then it rises. Once there's an airspace, it can block it.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. That's a great answer. So let me come to the next place that we went together, and that is the Avraham Avinu Synagogue. The Avraham Avinu Synagogue, and I still, of course, I've read things about it and heard from David and Noah when they were with us talking about it a little bit. But you told me on our first trip there, because it was really in shambles at that time, just starting to be used really a little bit. But you told me at one time donkeys were kept in there, and horses and donkeys, and there was dung left in there and
Remember
things
that?
like that.
I showed you that.
You showed me.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. That at one time it was like that, and it was all cleaned up and made into a synagogue, and that they stopped the construction of the synagogue, the Israeli government, because of Arab complaints, and they wanted to keep peace, and it was in the middle of construction, never got finished. So tell me now that, for our viewers, because I've brought this up, 20 years later, is it finished? Is it used as a synagogue? Is it a beautiful neighborhood? And are the buildings that were built right above it, next to it, going up the hill, that started and weren't finished as apartment buildings, are those now residential places?
Absolutely. That's the nerve center of the Jewish community today, that whole neighborhood. The shul, as a matter of fact, was just renovated. They finished a renovation job probably a month ago. It was redone. Since you saw it, it's been renovated the second time. It's a beautiful place, and I want to invite all our viewers to come visit Hebron, because it's a really eye-opening, worthwhile opportunity. There's no place like Hebron that can help a Jew connect to his roots. That's the place. The cradle of all Judaism in Hebron, and we have a lot to see. Come visit us.
You know, my synagogue, or menorah, the former president of my synagogue, who's a Chicagoan, who you know from growing up as well, Josh Weinstein. So Josh went on Aliyah, Josh and Rachel and their children went on Aliyah just this past year, and their son Reuven had his bar mitzvah, and they chose to have the bar mitzvah at the Marat HaMachpelah and bring their family and friends there for that occasion, and they said it was the most moving experience to be able to do that.
Absolutely. We have lots of bar mitzvahs. My son, we just had the bris, right? So he was married in the Matachpela, in the front and the outside, and it's really a moving thing, and it's an important thing. Look, that's what people say. They're going home to Ima and Abba, to their parents. They're going to the Matachpela. That's what they are.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. So tell me more about Hebron and Kiryat Arba. Has Kiryat Arba itself, as a residential city, expanded, or is it still the hill city, as they say? How is Kiryat Arba, and what is its not only physical connection, but municipal connection to Hebron itself?
Okay, since you visited Kiryat Arba,
the last time I was there would be 1992, probably.
1992, it's grown. It's been growing. There are more neighborhoods that have been opened up. We're sitting still about 9,000 people. 9,000 people, different neighborhoods. Some apartment buildings, there are private homes there, and it hasn't grown as other places have grown, unfortunately. Okay, this is something, taking an example of the city of Efrat in Gush Etzion.
Your sister lives there.
My sister lives there. That's why I know. They have like 25,000 people. Okay, and it was founded about 10 years after Kiryat Arba. And Kiryat Arba is still stuck in there 8,000-9,000 people, unfortunately.
Now the yeshiva is still thriving in Kiryat Arba?
Yeah, absolutely. Now you asked a question municipally. The entity of Hebron and the municipality of Kiryat Arba are two separate groups.
Kiryat Arba hi Hebron. How is that?
Kiryat Arba hi Hebron, but Hebron lo Kiryat Arba. That's a difference. That's the way it is. Kiryat Arba has its own. It's recognized as a municipality. There are legal problems because we're a yeshuv and city within the municipal boundaries of the Hebron municipality, so we can't be legally it creates conflicts to take borders of one municipality and attach it to the other municipality. And but we run ourselves. We run ourselves. That's the.
Now, when I was there with you back in those days, outside of the squatters, and I know at the time the ones who were squatting in the Hadassah and hoped to live there permanently,
Right.
very few people lived in Hebron. And then since then, let's say 10 years after that or so on, people were living in trailers in Hebron.
Right.
And you know, they brought in prefab homes and trailers into Hebron that people were moving into. Tell me, what is the status of actual homes built and condo apartments built in Hebron now? Are how many people? Not an exact number, but approximately how many families are in Hebron, and what are they all living in apartments now? Are there any prefabs and trailers still that people live in?
Hebron is there's a waiting list to get to Hebron, and any place that we can probably stick a family, we'll stick a family. That's the way it works today. Hebron has about 900 people in it. Not just several of them still live in prefab homes and trailers. There's certain areas that we're still pushing the government to receive building permits. The land that we build on is Jewish property that we reclaimed. We're just talking a little bit about Hebron history again. Hebron always had a Jewish presence in it from the time of Abraham up until 1929. 1929, the riots in Hebron, which essentially decimated the Jewish community. Those who survived the attacks were removed from Hebron by orders of the British authorities in 1936. Okay, so between 36 and 1967, there was a period there was really no Jews living in Hebron, and during that time period, the Arab population stole the land. They stole the property. There were certain places they were afraid to move into. For instance, you mentioned before the Beit Hadassah hospital. They were afraid to move in the Beit Hadassah because they were very superstitious. And there were many people slaughtered in the hospital, and they were afraid of spirits that were inhabiting the building. So it was off boundaries. They used it as a garbage dump. It was a garbage dump, but they didn't move in. And those are the first properties that we returned to. We cleaned it up, we moved back in. This is stuff we had the papers for. This is ours. The organization that represents our yishuv, okay, which is the
Settlement.
The settlement, okay, the settlement. The yishuv is the community, okay, our community. The American arm of it is the Hebron Fund. Okay, it's based in New York. Our group is involved in locating Jewish properties and reclaiming them through legal means, and also we can resettle it. And we need the money. It's really a financial issue because we have the people to do it. We have a waiting list of people to move in, but every home that we can get our hands on, every apartment that we can build there, there's always a conflict. Who's going to go in?
So let me ask you this, because we've heard this certainly in the news a number of times over the years. An Arab family has control of former Jewish land. The Israeli government or a charitable organization or an individual family raises the funds to buy it back. We're not going to throw you out and take it from you. We're going to buy it back because it was Jewish land, and we're deserving it. So we're going to even pay you. Just get out. So here's your money. Get out. And all of a sudden, the community, you hear of this person being murdered for selling to Jews. Is that still a problem in reclaiming land?
Absolutely. We have now something called Beit HaShalom, which you're probably referring to. Beit HaShalom was bought by an American for lots of money. Okay, we're talking about tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, this person bought it. We paid the Arab owner. It's on videotape. In other words, counting the money. I mean, it's a cash deal. There wasn't bank transfers, cash deal. And apparently he was threatened by his life was threatened unless he tells them that the papers were forged. So now we're fighting in court. We're fighting this thing in court. And in the meantime, we had families living inside there. The families were removed by the government. The home itself has now been taken over by the army. The army has a presence inside this. It's actually a house between Kiryat Arba and Hebron itself. They're sitting there waiting for to play out in courts.
Unbelievable.
The people are making money on the lawyers.
It's really an unbelievable thing.
That's right.
What is the future of Hebron? I mean, let's talk Tachlit. In Tachlis, is Hebron going to change for the better for the Israeli population, for the Jewish people, for the safety of the residents and the Jewish people? Thank God there hasn't been a terrorist attack in Hebron itself for a long time, but God knows that people would love to do it out there that we're protected from. Are they ever going to get away with it again? What is the future of Hebron?
Hebron has an incredible amount of symbolism for the Jewish people. I'll tell you something, it's an interesting question. When we first moved to Hebron 30 years ago, to bring a tourist to Hebron, an Israeli tourist, I'm not talking about somebody from overseas, an Israeli tourist, people thought you were nuts going there. Through 30 years of hard work, and bringing people, and bringing groups, and bringing Hebron toward not just people's mind, people's hearts, bringing Hebron to the Jewish populace throughout Israel and the world. Hebron has now become mainstream. About 3 months ago, the Minister of Education announced that he wants all the children in grade school to come visit Hebron, because he realizes the Minister of Education, the Israeli government, recognizes the value of bringing the children to the Martach Pelah, to showing them their Jewish roots. So I think that we've in the past years we've gone a long way forward. Okay, and I really hope that the Jewish community is just going to bring the message to Hebron to the rest of the world. That's all.
That's wonderful. What a wonderful thing. I can't thank you enough for being here. I'm here with Rabbi Uri Karzen from the City of Hebron, and we're on Taped with Rabbi Doug, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Taped with Rabbi Doug. I am here with Rabbi Uri Karzen of Israel, the city of Hebron. He is here visiting Chicago, his birthplace and where he grew up. And you came to Chicago for what reason right now?
Well, this Sunday we have a benefit concert for the Jewish community of Hebron, and I'm there to represent. I'm going to be on display.
And the Hebron Fund is benefiting from this to help their endeavors.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
We would like to set up a branch of the Hebron Fund in Chicago. Chicago is a very warm city and warm in the hearts.
Yes.
Now with the snow, and we hope to make some kind of connection. We're actually establishing a Chicago square in front of the Cave of Machpelah. There'll be a resting area with a garden and all kinds of stuff there, and hopefully the
very nice. The Chicago people come and visit.
They come and visit, right?
That's a wonderful thing. Well, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. It's really a pleasure to be with you, my dear friend Uri Karzen, and I wish you much success and continued hatzlacha with the city of Hebron's expansion and growing safety and growing tourist population and residential population.
Okay.
It really is a wonderful place, and you'll give David and Noah my very best warm regards when you see them, please.
If anybody wants to visit Hebron, you can look on www.hebron.com. They can have all the information you need to set up a personal tour to our city.
Wonderful, and it's a great place to be. I've been there, and it is just, you feel your Jewish roots in history, just being in Hebron. And please, mazel tov to you, and give your wife Shelly a mazel tov, and your children on their new baby boy. You should have much nachat from your grandson, and please tell your parents another mazel tov on their great grandson as well.
Right,
this great simcha in your family. And you, our viewers, thank you for being with us. Remember, you can check out our website www.tvrabbi.com, where you can also see our former shows on the web, including his parents. And if you want to email me or email Uri, you can do that at info@tvrabbi.com. I will forward that email to him, and I know he'll get back to you personally. Thank you so much for being with us. Hope to see you next week, same time, right here on Taped with Rabbi Doug. Shalom, everyone.
And I'm talking about Rabbi Doug. Talking about Rabbi Doug. Talking about Rabbi Doug. Gonna see Rabbi Doug. Gonna see Rabbi Doug on the TV tonight.
This has been a Taped with Rabbi Doug production.